are listening to A Scary State, and this week we're talking about... Nope. What are we talking about? I didn't think about that at all. I was going to get ready to say a state, and we're not talking about a state.
Like I knew it.
I know, because that's normally what I do. I look at Lauren. Well, we have a special episode for you, and obviously that is not the voice of Lauren. Lauren was at the beach this past week, and so I decided to invite a good friend of mine and a loyal listener, my friend Allie.
Hi.
You have heard about Allie before. She's my buddy from New Hampshire.
But I live in Virginia.
Correct. Now, that would be a true fan if you drove all the way down here from New Hampshire to do this. After the technical difficulties we've been having. Knock on wood. Okay. So, would you like to tell everybody how we met?
Well, you hired me.
I did.
Yes. So I know Kenzie through teaching, and we taught 5th grade together for
5 years. 4 years.
4 years?
4
We were
years.
at the same school for 5 years.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But yes, she's my work wifey, even though we don't work together. She will still be my work wifey forever and ever.
Yes.
And
amen.
Yeah, I do.
Yes, she is my teaching buddy, my warrior in the trenches, my evil co-conspirator.
Yeah.
So, like I said, it's a special episode this week. So we're not talking about a specific state. We are going to have just a specific topic. And what's kind of exciting is when this comes out, the following week, we'll start spooky season.
Yay.
So this is kind of like a pre-spooky season episode.
Okay.
Like
That
preseason
makes me even
football.
happier with this whole experience.
You are extra, extra special.
Oh.
Okay. Along with the feelings of disgust and fear that a serial killer can trigger, there also exists a morbid curiosity among society. People have a desire to learn about them and figure out why they do what they do. According to Psychology Today, people's fascination with evil is not inherently psychologically unhealthy. They said, quote, some experts posit that interest in serial killers is fueled by our general desire to understand the unknown and to feel secure in our own lives. Similarly, serial killer fascination may offer a safe outlet for dark thoughts and urges that everyone, even those who would never hurt another person, experiences. Society's fascination has led to countless books, TV shows, podcasts, and movies about serial killers that don't always paint the murderers in a purely evil light. The public's knowledge about serial murder mainly comes from Hollywood. The stories are created to attract the interest of audiences instead of accurately portraying the crime. When people fixate on the horrendous acts inflicted on the victims by these offenders, the public begins to be captivated by the criminals and their crimes. This can lead to many falsehoods about serial killers. So in 2005, the FBI hosted a serial murder symposium in order to create a general consensus on the, quote, causality, motivations, and characteristics of serial murderers from a variety of disciplines such as law enforcement, forensic experts, psychologists, etc. All the people that would be knowledgeable that you could possibly think
Not
of.
me.
Well, after today,
Okay.
we might be amateurs, but we might be invited to the next one. So today I'm going to share with you some myths and facts about what we know of as of kind of today about serial killers. There's also going to be a pop quiz.
Oh, no.
So we're going to see how well you know your true crime facts.
Oh, gosh.
It's fine. You'll do great. Because we also pride ourselves on finding stories that are not as well known, I tried to include as many stories, people, that kind of good stuff that maybe you haven't heard of before. So, pop quiz.
Already?
I told you it was coming.
Okay.
I didn't say later.
Oh, that's true.
I said there's going to be one.
Anxiety's just already fogging my judgment.
No. Really. You get a 50-50 chance.
Okay.
True or false? Serial killers are all dysfunctional loners.
False.
Correct. The majority of serial killers are not reclusive outcasts who live alone. They don't always appear strange, and the majority of them hide in plain sight within the community. Serial murderers often have families, homes, can hold down a steady job, and appear to be all around normal members of the community. This causes them to often be overlooked by law enforcement and the public.
Like BTK.
Ah, wow, good job.
No.
He was definitely on the list of examples that were included, but I decided not to include him because he's so well known.
Well, I mean, I have an unhealthy obsession with all of this.
Right. So I'm so glad that you were able to contribute to this conversation. Robert Yates killed 17 sex workers in Spokane, Washington between 1975 to 1998. He was married with 5 children and lived in a middle-class neighborhood. He was also a decorated U.S. Army National Guard helicopter pilot. when Yates was eventually arrested, he pled guilty to only 13 of the murders.
Why?
Why?
Why only 13?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm sure it told me, but we don't dive too deep in all of these.
Fair enough.
We're going to be purely surface level. Just talking about a lot of people who killed a lot of people and did bad things. So anything that could possibly bad could come up, that anything a serial killer could do.
Everything's fair game.
Yeah. So heads up. Even though yeah. Anyway, okay. To the outside world, Albert Fish seemed like a normal husband and father of 6 children. It was a shock when Fish revealed that he had raped, killed, and ate hundreds of children. Nobody would have ever suspected Philip Markoff of being the infamous Craigslist killer. While in school, he was part of the youth court, a member of the National Honor Society, and an overall promising student. All right, true or false? Serial killers span all racial groups.
True.
Correct.
These are easy.
Sorry?
What can I say? I'm a good pop quiz taker.
Make sure you don't talk too far away from the microphone or else they won't be able to hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, you're killing it, girl.
No pun intended. Was that too much?
Ooh. All right. Welcome. Welcome to the dark side. I'm definitely keeping that in. Lauren's not around to supervise.
Yay. Mom's not home.
Exactly. So there are white, African American, Hispanic, and Asian serial killers. The racial diversification of serial killers generally mirrors that of the overall U.S. population, which makes sense. Coral Eugene Watts, an African American, killed 5 victims in Michigan, fled the state to avoid detection, and murdered another 12 victims in Texas before being apprehended. Rafael Resendez Ramirez, a native of Mexico, murdered 9 people in Kentucky, Texas, and Illinois before turning himself in. Ricardo Ramirez's parents, or better known as Richard Ramirez, the infamous Night Stalker who murdered at least 14 people during various break-ins in the greater Los Angeles and San Francisco Bay Area in the mid-1980s, were Mexican immigrants. True or false? Serial killers are only motivated by sex.
False.
Good job. There are many other motivations for serial murders, including anger, thrill, financial gain, and attention seeking. The DC snipers John Allen Muhammad and Lee Boyd Malvo killed primarily for anger and thrill motivations. They were able to terrorize the greater Washington, D.C. metro area for 3 weeks, shooting 13 victims, killing 10 of them. I don't remember that.
I was going to say, was that when you were alive?
Yes.
Well, I don't know. I don't know the times off.
I think it was...
But you were really young.
Yeah, I was in like 2nd grade, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I don't remember. Quite honestly, it wasn't until at least within the last 5 years that I learned that happened when I was alive, because that's how little I remembered it. I remembered hearing about it and thought it happened before because I never remember seeing anything. So,
okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Paul Reed killed at least 7 people during fast food restaurant robberies in Tennessee. After gaining control of the victims, he either stabbed or shot them. The motivation for the murders was primarily witness elimination. Reed's purpose in committing the robberies was financial gain. True or false? Serial murderers travel and operate interstate.
Some true. Can it be partially true?
Okay, let me rephrase.
Okay.
Serial murders typically only travel and operate interstate.
False.
False. Hard enough for you now?
Well, I mean, you should have worded it differently.
Most serial killers have a very defined geographic areas of operation. They conduct their killings within comfort zones that are often defined by an anchor point, so place of residence, employment, or residence of a relative. Serial murderers will, at times, spiral their activities outside of their comfort zone when their confidence has grown enough through experience or to avoid detection. Very few serial killers travel interstate to kill. So think about the Long Island serial killer. So there was a series of murders spanning from the early 1990s until 2011. Many of the victim remains were found over a period of months from 2010 and 11 during a police search of the area along Ocean Parkway near the remote beach of Giglow in Suffolk County, New York, or Long Island.
So question, do you think that the ones that travel interstate or have interstate murders, it's because of, like, I just think of the ones that are like truckers or like have a job that takes them?
God, you're as bad as Lauren.
I'm sorry. Okay. I feel for you, Lauren. Okay.
Wait a second. I have another example.
Okay.
So the hillside stranglers, they got their nicknames because that originated from the fact that many of them were found and discovered in hills surrounding the city. The few that do travel tend to fall into a few categories. Homeless individuals who are transient, those whose employment lends itself to travel, such as truck drivers or those in a military service.
I'm so good.
For example, think the I-5 killer. Randall Brent Woodfield is an American serial killer, serial rapist, kidnapper, robber, burglar, and former football player who was dubbed the I-5 killer or the I-5 bandit by the media due to the crimes he committed along the Interstate 5 corridor running through Washington, Oregon, and California. Before his capture, Woodfield was suspected of multiple sexual assaults and murders. Though convicted of only one murder, he has been linked to a total of 18 murders and is suspected of having killed up to as many as 44 people. Dr. No, the nickname given to a suspected American serial killer thought to be responsible for the murders of at least 9 women and girls in Ohio between 1981 and 1990. As victims, Dr. No primarily chose sex workers working in parking lots and truck stops located along Interstate 71. It is still unsolved.
I was going to say.
I talk about it in our second Ohio episode, ? I think.
I should know that.
So should I. So... Or just a person who travels place to place a lot, so moves.
Okay.
True or false? Serial killers can stop killing.
I don't like that question.
It's not a question.
True.
Correct. Yeah.
They just choose not to.
According to the Symposium monograph, which I learned is a fancy schmancy word for an important document. So not just any document, but like an important document.
What's the term?
Monograph?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I like that.
Anyway, they say, quote, it has been widely believed that once serial killers start killing, they cannot stop. There are, however, some serial killers who stop murdering altogether before being caught. In these instances, there are events or circumstances in offenders' lives that inhibit them from pursuing more victims. These can include increased participation in family activities, sexual substitution, or other diversions. So, for example, BTK, or Dennis Rader, murdered 10 victims from 1974 to 1991. He did not kill any other victims prior to being captured in 2005. During interviews conducted by law enforcement, Rader admitted to engaging in autoerotic activities as a substitute for his killings. Jeff Gorton killed his first victim in 1986 and his next victim in 1991. He did not kill another victim and was captured in 2002. Gorton engaged in cross-dressing and masturbatory activities as well as consensual sex with his wife in the interim. True or false? All serial killers are insane or evil geniuses.
False.
Good job. That one was with confidence.
Yeah.
Serial killers suffer from a variety of personality disorders, including psychopathy, antisocial personality, and others. Most, however, are not considered insane under a court of law. Like the majority of the population, serial killers range in intelligence from borderline to above average levels. True or false? Serial killers want to get caught.
It's hypothesized that some seem that they want to.
Final answer?
False.
Correct.
Oh. Do any?
What?
Like, it's just false for all of them?
Well,
okay, sorry.
The Symposium monograph states, quote, while most serial killers plan their offenses more thoroughly than other criminals, the learning curve is still very steep. They must select, target, approach, control, and dispose of their victims. The logistics involved in committing a murder and disposing of the body can become very complex, especially when there are multiple sites involved. As serial killers continue to offend without being captured, they can become empowered, feeling they will never be identified. As the series continues, the killers may begin to take shortcuts when committing their crimes. This often causes the killers to take more chances, leading to identification by law enforcement. It is not that serial killers want to get caught, they feel that they can't get caught.
That makes sense.
Yeah. The Symposium decided on the following definition for a serial killer. Quote, the unlawful killing of 2 or more victims by the same offender or offenders in separate events. The attendees also agreed, quote, there is no single identifiable cause or factor that leads to the development of a serial killer. Rather, there are a multitude of factors that contribute to their development. The most significant factor is a serial killer's personal decision in choosing to pursue their crimes. They also made several other conclusions about causality. They said that the predisposition to serial killing is similar to other violent offenses. They are biological, social, and psychological in nature, but are not limited to any specific characteristic or trait. There is a combination of these factors which, quote, exist together in a rare confluence in certain individuals. They have the appropriate biological predisposition molded by their psychological makeup, which is present at a time in their social development. Attendees at the Serial Murder Symposium,
Wow.
what a name, agreed that there is no generic profile of a serial murderer. However, they did identify certain traits common to some serial murderers. These traits include sensation-seeking, a lack of remorse or guilt, impulsivity, the need for control, and predatory behavior. They also determined that identifying the motive in a serial murder investigation may be difficult and there might be more than one motive. To help law enforcement narrow down the pool of suspects, the attendees came up with broad, non-inclusive categories of motivations that could serve as guidelines for an investigation. So, many of the people that I'm going to be talking about could definitely fall into more than one of these categories.
Okay.
But just for simplicity reasons, I only give like pretty much one example for each of them.
Okay.
But it's very easy to see how they could fit in the other ones. Does that make sense?
Okay, I will keep that in mind.
Okay.
Before I call you out.
So the first motivation, this feels like going over like the 7 deadly sins.
I could see the connection.
There's more than 7, but like kind of feels like the same vibes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Anger is a motivation in which an offender displays rage or hostility towards a certain subgroup of the population or with the society as a whole. So these are all like examples of the motivations for why they do it. And I say that in quotes because that's like what our fascination goes to, is like how and why can someone do that?
So when you say angered, could that also be towards people like in their own life? Because I know you said about society as a whole.
Yeah. So certain subgroups or,
okay.
Yeah. So for this one, I have the example of between 1977 and 1980, Joseph Paul Franklin shot and killed at least 22 people, specifically targeting interracial couples with the goal of inciting a race war.
Oh my.
He was also responsible for shooting Hustler magazine publisher Larry Flynt, leaving him paralyzed, and civil rights activist Vernon Jordan, who survived his injuries. Franklin never revealed his true number of victims, leaving investigators to speculate that he killed more than those to which he confessed to. His actual number of victims will likely remain unknown, as Franklin was executed in 2013 while serving his death sentence in Missouri.
Yep, that's one way to protest.
Another motivation could be criminal enterprise. So that motivation is when the offender benefits in status or monetary compensation by committing murder that is drug, gang, or organized crime related. So, for example, Salvatore Gravano, or Sammy the Bull, began by committing petty crimes, street fighting, and common theft. But in the 1960s, he became the prodigy of a mafia boss, Joe Colombo. Hi, Wumbo. You, Wumbo.
We, Wumbo?
He, she, we. Wumbo. Wumbology. Sorry. Yeah.
It's a bunch of mumbo gumbo.
Pretty much. With Lauren, I've tried to work on those intrusive thoughts, but different.
She's not here.
Exactly.
Mom's not here.
So it just come right out. Gravano was eager to impress his boss, and to do so, he had to commit several brutal murders. But it wasn't too long before Gravano switched his allegiance from the Colombo family to the Gambino family. Gravano became second in command to New York Mafia boss John Gotti. During this time, Gravano was involved in at least 19 murders. He was arrested in 1991, and to avoid too harsh of a punishment, he became a government informant, helping to bring down 39 mobsters, including John Gotti himself.
They let him be an informant after how many people he killed?
Yep.
Interesting.
They do that for a lot of people.
That's true.
Yeah. So another one is financial gain, which the offender benefits monetarily from killing. Examples of these types of crimes are like the Black Widow type of killings, robbery, homicides, multiple killings involving insurance or welfare fraud. So John Edward Robinson was first arrested in 1969 at the age of 26 for forged documents and certificates in order to secure a job as an X-ray technician. And while he was working at the doctor's office, he stole $33,000. Once released from jail, Robinson continued making fake documents and stealing from companies and individuals. But he wasn't just a con man. Starting in 1993, he met several of his victims online while pretending to run different businesses. He would offer them secretarial positions, and once each woman moved to Kansas for her new job, he murdered her. Robinson's spree finally ended in 2000 when he was arrested for sexual battery in addition to theft. Police searched his property and found decaying bodies in giant barrels. Robinson has confessed to 8 murders, but police believe that number is likely higher. Robinson was sentenced to death and is on death row in Kansas.
Currently?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay.
So another motivation is ideology. So the motivation to commit murders in order to further the goals and ideas of a specific individual or group. So examples could include terrorist groups or an individual or individuals who attack a specific racial, gender, or ethnic group. When Adolfo Costanzo was a baby, a Haitian priest who practiced Palo Mayombe, a Afro-Cuban religion that commonly uses animal and humane remains and rituals, blessed him at his mother's request. Costanzo's mother believed that he was, quote, the chosen one and a natural-born leader. Costanzo practiced Palo Mayombe himself as a teen and eventually moved from his hometown of Miami, Florida to Mexico City, where he began offering his services to the community. Costanzo gained a following by claiming he could turn people invisible and had psychic powers, which he would use to help local drug dealers determine the safest times to make deliveries. He then began killing people to use their body parts for his rituals. 2 years passed before police identified Costanzo as a serial killer and linked him to at least 23 ritualistic murders committed with the help of cult members, including a woman named Sarah Alderete.
I was wondering when cult was going to come into there.
Yeah. Police searched his property and discovered 15 mutilated bodies, including Mark Kilroy's, who was a University of Texas pre-med student that was abducted while on spring break in Mexico, all buried on his property. They also found a cauldron in the home containing Kilroy's brain and a dead cat.
Why the kitty?
Well, human and animal. Costanzo knew the police were looking for him, so he quickly fled to another city. In a strange turn of events, police were called to the apartment in which Costanzo was hiding out in on a completely unrelated incident, but believing that police knew who he was, Costanzo began shooting at them. And by the time that police rushed the apartment, Costanzo was already dead. He didn't want to go to jail, so he was a little baby back bitch and ordered one of his crew members to fatally shoot him.
He didn't even do it himself?
Nope. And then his, I guess, partner in crime, Sarah Aldrete, or what did I say before?
I don't remember.
Yeah, see, this is the other problem I run into.
I remember hearing this on your last episode.
Yeah. Anyway, she was later sent to prison for her role in the killings. So there's also the power thrill people as a motivation in which the offender feels empowered and or excited when he kills his victims. So I also think, too, like a lot of ones that are seeking attention will be these kinds of people. So Daniel Rowling, who later became known as the Gainesville Ripper, raped and or murdered 8 people between 1989 and 1990. 5 of these victims were college students. He also mutilated his victims, even decapitating one of them before posing their remains in a very lewd manner. Rowling was eventually arrested on charges of burglary, and police were able to link him to the unsolved murders of the 5 college students by matching his tools to those used in the killings. After his arrest, Rowling revealed that he committed the crimes because he wanted to be a famous serial killer like Ted Bundy.
Oh.
Rowling also confessed to a 1989 triple murder that occurred in Shreveport, Los Angeles, raising his purported body count from 5 to 8. Rowling pleaded guilty during his trial and received several death sentences. He was executed at Florida State Prison on October 5th, 2006.
Why do you think everyone wants to be like Ted Bundy?
I don't know, because
he's like charismatic.
I think because he used his charm to lure his victims.
It seems admirable to those individuals who are trying to.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not.
Correct. That's what happens when men can't handle no.
Mm-hmm.
So there is some situations where there is, like, psychosis is the reason for why they committed the crimes. So usually the offender is suffering from a severe mental illness and is killing because of that illness. This may include auditory and or visual hallucinations and paranoid, grandiose, or bizarre delusions. So Alvin Taylor murdered 4 friends and acquaintances across Wisconsin from 1985 to 1987. Taylor is believed to have experienced his first psychotic break sometime in 1969 after going to a bar and supposedly overhearing that some men were planning to kill him. But he left the bar and also claimed that the people on the bus and the maid at a motel were also planning to do the same. By the mid-1970s, he began to show signs of mental illness that affected him to the point where he was admitted to a hospital, where he was soon diagnosed with schizophrenia. Due to this diagnosis, Taylor spent most of the late 1970s until March 1987 in various psychiatric clinics. Beginning in the early 1980s, Taylor made a living as a singer and entertainer in nightclubs throughout Wisconsin and Bloomington, Minnesota, but experienced a sharp decline in his mental health. Friends and acquaintances alike characterized him as a religious fanatic and a pacifist who, by the late 1980s, had virtually become detached from reality and preferred to live in his own fantasy world. After he was arrested, Taylor admitted to the 4 murders shortly after his arrest.
Oh, I thought you were laughing at mortars.
Oh, I didn't even realize I said that. So there you go. After he was arrested, Taylor admitted to the 4 murders, but his sanity was quickly questioned as he himself claimed to hear voices projected by what he called the Force and described himself as a soldier of God tasked with killing evil people as an undercover police officer. In addition, he suffered from hypochondria and clinical delusions. He seemingly expressed regret for what he had done and stated that he knew he was likely going to prison. His lawyer, John Kukninski, petitioned for a court-appointed mental exam, which was granted. At said exam, Taylor was found to be suffering from paranoid schizophrenia and deemed incompetent to stand trial for the murder charges, but was found guilty and sentenced to 20 years imprisonment on the attempted murder charge.
So he was found, okay, I don't know which word to use, but he had a mental illness, but he also knew what he was doing was wrong, and he would go to, okay, interesting.
I don't know. His lawyer said that, like, it was very difficult to communicate with him and all that kind of good stuff.
I just feel like you normally hear it's one or the other. They knew it was wrong or they were insane. So it's just interesting hearing both.
Yeah, and I wonder too, like, if there's moments of clarity.
Yeah.
That, like, maybe that's
like when they're not having those moments of psychosis.
Right.
Yeah.
And, like, thinking that the person, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So, but he was court ordered that he be interned at the Mendota Mental Hospital in Madison, and he's still there, although he might have recently died, but he never got released.
Right.
And then our last motivation is the ickiest one of all.
Oh, no.
The sexually based motivation, obviously driven by sexual needs and desires of the offender. There may or not be overt sexual contact reflected in the crime scene. So Donald Pee Wee Gaskins violated... I know.
Okay.
Yeah. Terrible name, terrible life, terrible person. So he violated, tortured, and killed indiscriminately between 1969 and 1975 in South Carolina. Investigators discovered the remains of both boys and girls, mostly in their teens or young adults.
Ew.
Walter Neely, who helped Gaskins with cleaning up the murders, caved under pressure and told police about Gaskins' private cemetery. Police discovered 8 bodies, including a small baby who was killed after Gaskins killed the mother. What's even sadder is that this mother was pregnant.
With another baby?
No, with that baby.
Oh.
Yeah. This guy is fucking gross.
I hope he was made fun of for his name then.
Well, he's made fun of for his height.
Good. All of the above.
Yeah. Also, what probably contributed to what he did later on.
That's not an excuse.
No, it's not. That's why we say feel bad for the child.
Yes.
Not for the adult. Yeah. On May 24th, 1976, a jury convicted Gaskins of all 8 murders and the other guy. In his autobiography, Gaskins would claim upwards of 100 murders along the coastline, supposedly.
So he wrote this from prison?
Yeah, he had like an author help him. And he was executed in like 1991.
But he can't make money off of that.
Well, he's dead, so.
Well, I mean, but when it was...
It didn't publish until 1993.
Oh, okay.
So.
Well, I wonder where the proceeds are going to.
I'm assuming the guy who helped him write it.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know.
Not like victims' families or...
This was the 90s. I don't know if they cared that much yet.
Good point.
So, in conclusion...
I love it when you say that.
I believe human behavior will continue to be an enigma that we will constantly strive to understand. We may never truly know the reasons behind the scary minds and motives some people possess, and no matter how well we think we know someone, they could be hiding some very dark secrets.
Are you trying to tell me something?
I'm just trying to inform you of the common profiles of prolific serial killers.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind.
Which will be the title of this episode.
Okay.
So, and that's all she wrote.
Literally.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
Also, well, it relates to a lot of things that I hear about when I listen to podcasts like this.
Correct. So I figured I'd stick with the theme.
Yeah. So now I feel even more knowledgeable.
Yeah. I'd be like, oh, I learned about this. So yeah, those are the profiles. They're actually still doing research. I found a study done in 2020 of trying to connect different types of abuses in childhood to specific types of murders.
Oh.
So they had obviously they had psychological, physical, emotional.
That sounds right.
Or verbal or something like that. I forget that one.
Verbal could be emotional.
Yeah, something like that. And then sexual.
Okay.
And so it was they have this almost kind of like a flow chart. The type of abuse led predominantly to the same type of killing. So it's if you had, what were some of them?
I think John Wayne Gacy like was sexually abused when he was a kid and then his crimes.
Well, so like it's more so not necessarily the specific crime itself, but more into a category of like, so the different types for motivation. So you have thrill, anger, power, financial, that kind of stuff. And so what type of things that they do. And then even from there, looking at each case itself and seeing that so like if they've had this type of abuse, they do this type of murder, and majority of them are likely to dispose of the body somewhere else or are likely to overkill or something like that. So it like breaks it down really even more. Yeah. And so making the connection that, we can start to confidently say that there are specific abuses that one can experience in childhood that tend to lead to these types of people if they do in fact grow up to be this type of person.
Well, and then, I mean, I'm sure that's what like the profilers, right? Like they use it but work backwards.
Yes, exactly. So that's kind of also the point too of looking at it like it's more of in retrospect.
Yeah.
It's not really helpful for predicting because there's plenty of people who have had bad childhoods and experiences and don't. In fact, majority of people don't.
Yeah.
One of the things that is always talked about is that 1% of all the murders that happen in this country are serial.
Oh.
So it's not this common occurrence. It's just that because of what it entails, we have, as a society, have become very fascinated by it, and therefore it is in the news and is heard about and talked about a lot more. So it seems like it's a prevalent problem.
Yeah.
When really it's more of an unfortunate outcome of much bigger problems that I think we have of making sure that our children are being well taken care for.
Heaven forbid.
Well,
aren't there other things that, now this is like all of my podcasts getting jumbled up in my brain, but other things that indicate, not that the person will become a serial killer, but like brain trauma at like a certain age.
And that's also the big thing too, is that there are so many factors that play into it. To just look at one thing as being a predisposition wasn't the point of the study. It was more of, we know that this can be a predisposition. Can it tell us what type of murders are being committed? So then therefore, maybe in the future, it's like, oh, this is a violent kill. This is somewhere else. This person most likely in their childhood had this type of abuse.
Right.
So like you said, going backwards. And so there's biological, there are so many different factors and
Nurture,
really
nature.
Right. And a lot of it too. And kind of what I liked that this like FBI symposium thingy, kind of the document, like what it said is basically like, this is a choice that they make.
Mm-hmm.
The very few that do suffer from mental psychosis, aside from them, this is a choice that they're making. So while they, can be quick to be like, well, it's because of this and this and this and this. Yes, those factors led to it, but you still made a choice in the end to then take this route.
Yeah. I'm glad they included that.
Yeah. Yeah. I did too. You just don't really know someone until you know them,
Until after, when you think about all the things that led to.
Well, there's a great show on, was it HBO or Amazon? I forget.
What's it called?
Evil Lives Here.
Oh, I think I've seen that.
And it's like all these people who have firsthand experiences of being married to, being the daughter, son of, wife, husband of very scary people. And it is crazy.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah. And I would say a good chunk of them are always scary or behind closed doors. Like John Wayne Gacy's sister was on there.
Oh.
Yeah.
I feel like I need to find this show.
Just Google Evil Lives Here and it'll pop up wherever it is.
Okay.
I can't remember, but it's good. It's
just add it to the
really,
list.
really fucking sad though, because obviously there is a lot of domestic violence victims.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's, well, pretty much all kinds of abuses because they're with these people. I took a break from watching it because while it is interesting to hear this other side of another perspective of this person that we only really get to see from the media perspective and almost kind of like who they truly were. We say like, oh, they blended in, but it's like, well, but how are they at home? Because the people at your home know more about who you are than people out there that no one else can see. But it's definitely It's heavy stuff. You're like, you know that in the end they survive because they're talking on the show. But there are some who, like, there's kids of cult leaders and growing up in a cult and becoming an adult and participating in things that are illegal and not moral. And then having this come to Jesus moment, pun intended, and realizing the wrongness, whatever you want to call it, of what they did. But they still have to, pay for their for their actions.
I feel like so many of these crimes and whatever are so unimaginable that's why we're just so fascinated. Because sometimes I question why I'm so fascinated by these stories.
It is the unimaginable. I also, for me, like the puzzle aspect of it, like not just like the crime, more so how they put the pieces together to find the person who did the crime.
Yeah.
And I like it more from that point of view. And it's interesting to understand them and see and to get that why later on. But I initially am like, I like to know how the investigation worked, that the pieces came together and you found this person.
Yeah.
Like, that's the interesting part to me. And then afterwards, it's like, okay, wow, you found this terrible person. Why did they do what they did? And then that part coming later.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Or maybe, like Psychology Today says, we're all just a little fucked up in the head.
I can't argue with that. At all.
Well, Allison, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited that I got to.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. This is a special because I got to share it with someone special.
Okay, well, now you're just sucking up to me.
I thought you were going to be like, oh, that was so sweet.
It was, yeah.
I don't know why I thought you would do that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's almost like you don't know me at all.
Well, next week, Lauren will be back. Thank God.
Wow. No longer a true 100% listener. Just kidding.
Okay. We got you hook, line, and sinker.
I get mad at you when you don't post it right away on Wednesdays. So
we do. It always posts at 8
a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's after I get ready to go to work.
Yeah.
I love starting my day off great.
Yeah, you can't
with the podcast.
Yeah. You got to start us on like Thursday morning.
That's usually what happens.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Unless it's a bad week. Then it's like over the weekend.
Fair. Other things need to be listened to. I get it. Well, tell all your friends to listen.
Yeah. I'm going to tell mine.
Yeah. Be like, I'm going to be on my friend's podcast. And then they're going to listen.
Sitting in this room, but I'm going to tell them. Well, my friend already does listen.
What about your husband?
He, I think, is a little concerned with my fascination. He wonders about me. But
because he's a man.
I think he has been in the car, though. Sometimes when I've listened, I'm like, no, we're finishing this episode before I change what we're listening to. So,
well, now I think because you're on it, he should really listen to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think my cats have listened to it more than he has.
Okay, well, they can't really go and share us to their other kitty friends. So if you could tell more human beings,
okay, yes,
that'd be cool.
Yes, moral of the story, I will tell more human beings, but also the people listening should also tell.
Oh, yeah. You guys too.
Yep.
Follow us on social media, A Scary State Podcast or A Scary State Pod. You can email us at ascarystatepodcast@gmail.com. And like we say, stay scary.
Stay safe.